Hi everyone, it's Daisy McCarty, founder of Brand Message Clarity. I feel like we're reaching the point of webinar saturation right now. However, I think there's still value in doing webinars if you follow a few simple guidelines. Number one, make your webinar a round table. I've been doing buyer personas for 12 years in the B2B space with a focus on marketing to C-suite executives. And the one thing that they all have in common is that the top place they look for insight, advice, and recommendations is their peer group. So if you're the person who's facilitating getting their peers together to have that conversation about emerging best practices, about real world examples of how things are right now, that's the kind of content that C-level executives still want to consume. So I would definitely say become that sponsor who's great at getting people together, be that moderator, but don't try to sell your brand during the webinar. Make it about your customers and the things that they need and the things that they want. Number two, make sure that it is interactive. So live Q&A, great way to go. However, don't have the moderator be the one managing the Q&A process. You should have someone dedicated behind the scenes who's actually managing that live, selecting the questions to present to the moderator, so the moderator isn't distracted and looking over the chat box and going, stuff is coming in, when they should be engaging with the panel instead. The person who's dedicated to focusing on the Q&A is also able to respond to the questioners who are not going to have their questions answered live, and reassuring them that, yes, we got your question, great question, we'll get back to you by this date. This person's going to reach out and answer that for you. And make sure you follow up on that, because that's a great way to make sure that you have more loyal watchers and listeners next time. And that brings me to my third point, which is don't make it highly visual. I know it's a webinar and you have the ability to show visuals, and it may be tempting to go overboard with that so you don't just have a bunch of talking heads. However, you need to remember that a lot of people who are tired of staring at screens are still willing to listen to stuff. And a lot of C-level executives, they're still busy, and they may want to consume your content while they are working out or while they're doing something else where they aren't able to see what you're presenting. So you can always, make sure that visuals are presented as a downloadable or emailed afterwards so people can have additional resources on the back end of that, and that's totally fine. If you are presenting visuals during the webinar, make sure that those are briefly described for the people who are just listening. And remember that as you send out follow-up materials afterward, that's also a great place to go back and answer some of the questions you couldn't get to during the live webinar. That is my moment of clarity for you today. Have a successful and inspired week.